in Windsor, and advice to make big changes at Windsor Fire. We will dig into a report from an outside consultant. Plus, why does bingo night mean so much to people in Windsor's downtown core? That's coming up later in the program. Let's start by setting the scene at the Windsor International Film Festival. It is moving ahead with screening a film called Russians at War, and that's despite ongoing controversy around it. Some say it's demeaning to local Ukrainians and that it's Russian propaganda. But as Jason Vio reports, the film's producer says that was not the intention.
The film at the center of this controversy is called Russians at War, and the filmmaker behind it was given unprecedented access and embedded herself alongside Russian soldiers as they made their way through eastern Ukraine in 2023. And some say that it shouldn't be screened here in Windsor, but others say people should see it before forming an opinion.
This whole film is based on Russian propaganda. And it's especially hard on those Ukrainian newcomers that have come to Windsor, who have lived through these atrocities, that have lost loved ones, have lost their homes, have had to flee Ukraine. And what this film essentially does is it makes, the producer tries to get across the point that the Russian soldier is a victim.
If it's Russian propaganda, it's the worst propaganda ever made, because if this film is shown in Russia, it's not going to support the war effort. It's going to undermine the war effort, because people are going to see their own men dying and disillusioned. We wanted to make an anti-war film, and initially we were doing it with protesters, and in the end we made an anti-war film with soldiers.
We do not think that we should be showing this type of film. It's very demeaning to those people that have come here from Ukraine, that are trying to make a life here. And we're supporting them, but we're also supporting the idea that Russian propaganda has no place in Canada. If we can change one person's mind against seeing that film, we'll be successful. And we're asking those people who currently have tickets, if they would reconsider, and if not, return their tickets, at least trade them in for another film.
The Windsor International Film Festival declined our request for an interview, but in an emailed statement, they say they're proud to screen films that audiences can reflect on and that people can have thoughtful and respectful discussions about. Now, that film, Russians at War, will premiere here at the Chrysler Theatre in downtown Windsor on Friday at 5:30 p.m. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at our weather forecast. And Colette, today is peak autumn. It's so beautiful outside today. I can't get enough of it.
I know, it's hard to argue with these kinds of conditions, right? Doesn't matter that it's not as mild as it was, a few days back or anything like that. When you have sunshine like this, the temperatures are certainly reasonable. The winds were generally light. I mean, all kinds of good things going on, right? There are those current temperatures right now at 13 degrees. We were up to 15, 11 for Chatham-Kent, 12 there in Sarnia, and some more 11s and 12s, including 11 for the London area. Winds, I was just mentioning, pretty much on the lighter side of things, less than 15 kilometers an hour all around, and through the overnight, in fact, they'll become even lighter still. With that, it does mean there could be a few areas where we get into a bit of patchy frost, and in fact, to get an advisory for that, we would have to go over towards the Niagara region, where there is a frost advisory. Of course, some of the growing season still going on there. Something else, though, I do just want to point out, the remnants of what was Hurricane Oscar, which wreaked such havoc as it went through the Bahamas and through Cuba in that region. Those remnants pushing in for our friends in Atlantic Canada. Now, they'll feel it somewhat with some of the heavier rains here in eastern Nova Scotia and for Cape Breton Island, but the heaviest stuff, central and eastern parts of Newfoundland, where there may be more than 125 millimeters of rain, not to mention the strong, strong winds there. So that's the active weather there. We're just talking about a bit of a cold front. It's not a bit of a cold front. I mean, it is one, but it's just not super strong or terribly moisture laden. Kind of like the last one that went through. This one has a little bit more rain associated with it. We're certainly going to have, mostly clear skies overnight tonight, but then those clouds are going to rapidly increase tomorrow morning. We'll get into a few scattered showers, and then by the afternoon hours, things will be drying out. And then by the evening, we should be seeing things actually kind of clearing out And that's a pretty nice setup because wait, let's see, that would be Friday night into, oh yes, into the weekend where we're going to have some decent conditions as a ridge of high pressure builds in. There'll be a little bit of lake effect if you're going to be traveling elsewhere in the province and towards the Ottawa Valley this weekend. There could be a few flurries flying and that kind of thing, but we're not going to worry about that for southwestern Ontario. 6 degrees overnight tonight. Tomorrow afternoon, 15 with those morning showers. The afternoon, we could see at times some sunny breaks through there. And then as we look ahead from there, Saturday, 14 after a low of 5. But know that Sunday morning, you'll be starting off, well, depending how early you're up on Sunday, that temperature below freezing, but then a nice day Sunday and a warm up coming next week. Katerina.
Love hearing a warm up. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
Shifting gears now to a sad story that's impacting folks in our community. Dozens of people gathered to honor the life of a former LaSalle volunteer firefighter this morning. His death from cancer is considered a line of duty death, even though he retired from firefighting in 2008. Dale Molnar has more.
Firefighters formed an honor guard as 64-year-old Bob Price's ashes were carried from the family's first funeral home on Dougal Avenue. A firefighter held the urn in a fire engine as it led a procession of dozens of cars. In the procession, an antique fire truck he helped get restored. The procession stopped in front of the LaSalle Police Station and Fire Headquarters for a last call ceremony. A dispatcher calls for Price to attend a fire call 3 times, then pays tribute to his passing.
He was a big part of our community. His son is also a LaSalle firefighter, so it just really means a lot to us to be able to do this for the family. Bob was really well liked in the community, whether it was as a firefighter or in his job as a home inspector.
So Bob was a very outgoing person, right? Eager to help anybody.
Price was a volunteer LaSalle firefighter from 1997 to 2008. He died of a type of cancer that is recognized by the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board as one firefighters get from fighting fires. And since he had served at least 10 years, his death was deemed a line of duty death.
A line of duty death consists of a firefighter passing away from one of a list of certain types of cancers, as well as having a heart attack within 24 hours after a fire response.
But Fire Chief Ed Thiessen says improvements have been made to turnout gear and decontamination procedures since Price served to minimize the risk of cancer.
So a balaclava, as an example, used to be a single layer of fabric, and it was designed to protect us from heat. Now it is 3 layers. We decon on site, so we have decon kits with a water and soap mixture that we wash the heavy grime off of our bunker gear before we transport it back to the fire service, where we have an extractor designed specifically to wash those harmful chemicals off of that gear.
Thiessen couldn't say what sort of compensation Price's family is getting from the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board, but he says the family says they have been well taken care of. Dale Molnar, CBC News, LaSalle.
The city of Windsor is sifting through 43 recommendations to improve its fire department. Chris Ensing breaks down the direction laid out in a report from an outside consultant.
Windsor's firefighters are busier than ever. As the city grows, call volume is on the rise. A new report to council has some recommendations. Hire more firefighters to help hit targets and keep costs down. Replace the dated record management system to ensure that buildings are being inspected properly. And help station number 7, which firefighters say often feels like working on an island. We're going to go over a bunch of numbers here. On average, firefighters are called out 23 times a day, with calls up 28% over 10 years, and staffing is pretty much stagnant. The report says firefighters are working until exhaustion at major incidents. That's costly physically, mentally, and financially. The overtime budget increased slightly between 2018 and 2022, but actual costs skyrocketed. And the rate of injuries doubled over 10 years. This report recommends hiring 20 more firefighters. Short term, 20 more in 4 to 6 years. The department says they'll have hired 40 new firefighters by the end of next year. It's not clear if these are new positions or simply people who have recently been hired. Another issue, the record system. An outside consultant asked the department for fire inspection records, but the department couldn't pull them. This report urges an immediate audit to make sure inspections are happening. The fire department says they're meeting the mandate and a new record system is coming online soon. And finally, station number 7. This is the 3rd busiest fire station in the system. It's also the furthest away from backup for major incidents, and it's on the edge of Windsor, where the most amount of growth is happening. This report says new crews hired should be stationed here to help response times, and then a new station should be built in the southwest area of the city to help meet demands. The incoming fire chief tells me they appreciate the report, that Windsor's served by dedicated career firefighters, and that he understands there's ways to improve. Council is already looking at a record high tax increase and looking for ways to cut costs. They'll be asked to approve a 10-year master plan that comes out of this report, but that does not require a funding commitment. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
A sad tribute today for beloved community members in Harrow. They were honored with 3 buddy benches at an elementary school there. Madison, Hunter, and their mother, Carly Walsh, tragically lost their lives in what police say was an instance of intimate partner violence this past summer. The benches were blessed this morning at the children's school, St. Anthony Catholic Elementary School. 2 of the benches are being placed behind the school in memory of Madison and Hunter, and one in front to commemorate their mother, Carly, who was a member of the parent council. The Catholic School Board says the benches are there as a safe place to sit if anyone needs a quiet space or to spend time with friends in a peaceful environment. The school is also naming 2 of its hallways after the children and keeping their team jerseys in its trophy case. And there might be a solution to the gas leak in Wheatley. It's kept the center of town closed since August of 2021. That's when an explosion destroyed several buildings and caused a prolonged evacuation of the area. The municipality of Chatham-Kent says there has been drilling, casing, and cementing of an abandoned well found on Talbot Street East. And since then, there hasn't been any gas venting from the well or any other wells in the area. A spokesperson says that suggests the issue may have been resolved. A large drilling rig and other equipment will soon be moved out of the area and restoration work will begin. But there will be ongoing testing and monitoring of the well to make sure the gas is no longer making its way to the area. A new community center in the downtown core here in Windsor is drawing in people who might be living on the streets or might have a roof over their heads, but are looking for safe and productive ways to spend their spare time and be with people. Here's a look at what happens there on Monday nights.
G56.
It's bingo night at the Streetlight Community Center, a place for people in the downtown core, especially folks who might be struggling, to come together for safety, community, and a bit of fun, too.
We were getting a lot of feedback about how people are bored and they don't have anything to do out here, and then they end up engaging in other things, right? That aren't necessarily healthy practices in life, right? They get bored, so they start, engaging in other things in the neighborhood.
No one pays to play, and prizes are donations from the community, like blankets and headphones. Ashley Shepley runs the center, often referring to herself as mama of the group.
A lot of us are the black sheeps. We're kids that came from homes that we didn't really feel heard or acknowledged, and we didn't really feel a place to belong.
I started coming because I was lonely and I just wanted to get involved in things.
Folks here come from all walks of life. Some are homeless, some are in lower income housing.
Yeah, everyone kind of has each other's back. It's a pretty safe area, which is good in contrast to the building that I live in, where it's not very good.
I got Windsor Housing. I got my own apartment for 4 years now. I got it after I graduated from the downtown mission. I come out to bingo to win my niece something for her birthday. I won her this today.
And it's about so much more than just bingo. These doors opened up over the summer to help people with different kinds of struggles, whether it be mental health issues or addiction struggles. And the goal was to fill a gap, because this isn't a shelter, this isn't a soup kitchen. This is a place for people to feel like they belong, like they're a part of a community, a family. So throughout the week, people can come by for coffee in the mornings, for ministry, prayer. 3 times a week, they also have trauma education, and they also have skill building lessons like learning how to cook together. And Monday nights, of course, is bingo night. And for folks who come here, they say that there's nothing else like this in the city.
It's homey, you know, and a lot of these people I know, like they're from my community, from the Glengarry area, and this is the time that we get to hang out together.
It is family oriented, and we all make sure everybody gets home safe, and usually no problems. Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, we're supported in more ways so that we can continue this and even have more opportunities, not just necessarily for bingo night, but like game night or like cards night or like, you know, karaoke night. Those things would be really beneficial for our community, I think, especially because they're free, they're sober, and they're accepting.
A live look outside there. Look at that autumn glow. Stay with us. After the break, we're going to go overseas for international updates. Welcome back. We have details from the BRICS summit hosted by Russia's leader, which the UN Secretary General attended to call for an end to fighting in Ukraine. But we begin with the latest airstrikes in Gaza and the renewed push for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
I'm Sasha Petrusik. At least 17 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli airstrike that hit a school in Nizrat. That's a refugee camp in central Gaza. And it's where many people have been seeking shelter as they've moved from one part of the territory to another. Some 2 million people are on the move constantly, and they often look for places that they can stay where they assume it is safe. This one wasn't. Israel says it was going after Hamas fighters who they say were hiding in or around the school, around that compound.
ولعوا اجى الاسعاف المدني واخذهم بيحكوا كلهم شهداء ومقطعين واشلاء احنا نازحين وكل الناس اللي بنعرفهم في المدرسه مدنيين ما لهمش علاقه بشيء كلهم اطفال ونساء ورضع اللي راحوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل.
This is just one place in Gaza where the fighting has escalated over the past couple of weeks. It's been especially hard in the north where the Israeli military has moved on the ground and from the air to hit another bigger refugee camp where thousands have been displaced and many others have been killed. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been searching for a way to stop that fighting with a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Israel managed to find and kill the head of Hamas just last week, but that's created another problem: who to negotiate with. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Qatar today trying to get some sort of consensus.
We talked about options to capitalize on this moment and next steps to move the process forward. And I anticipate that our negotiators will be getting together in the coming days.
Blinken says the mediators will be getting together again in Qatar over the next few days, but it's been tough going. They haven't been at the same table since last August, and with Hamas not having a leader, it's been difficult to figure out who's going to be given the last word. In the meantime, the fighting continues and even escalates in Gaza. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
I'm Crystal Gamansing in London. Nations outside of the circle of Western influence say there is a political and economic path forward together. Russia chaired this year's BRICS summit, and on the final day, President Vladimir Putin accused outside forces of using Ukraine to create strategic threats to Russia. Iran, a newcomer to the group, was welcomed by China's Xi Jinping, who called for the continued expansion of the group, which was formed to counter Western political and economic domination. Leaders gathered in Kazan pledged to deepen partnerships, but no concrete steps came from the summit on a joint currency to counter reliance on the U.S. dollar or a replacement to the international payment system SWIFT, topics that have been on multiple BRICS agendas. But with China, India, Iran, the UAE, Brazil, Nigeria, and many others standing with Putin, it is a projection of a united and growing bloc of nations determined to change the balance of power. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was criticized for attending the summit hosted by a man wanted by the International Criminal Court for possible war crimes. Guterres used the summit to call for peace in Ukraine, Sudan, Lebanon, and Gaza.
We need peace in Ukraine, a just peace in line with UN Charter, international law, and General Assembly resolutions.
Now, Putin raised the issue of the UN Security Council, which it is a permanent member, saying more voices are needed around the table, specifically those from Latin American, Asian, and African nations. A nod to those in the room standing with him. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
When we come back, what is a dust devil? I promise you, it does not live under your couch. We've got the answer after the break. Welcome back. A chemical plant near the Aamjiwnaang First Nation is being decommissioned earlier than planned. The INEOS plant in Sarnia uses benzene to create materials used in plastics. The First Nation has been under a state of emergency since April after air monitors picked up excessive amounts of benzene. Earlier this month, there was a partial evacuation of the community after the company worked to remove benzene from a nearby tank. The company previously said it would permanently close the plant before June of 2026, but hadn't ruled out restarting operations before that date. A release from the company today did not give a specific date for decommissioning, but says it is expected to happen early by the end of next year. Now, if you've ever wondered what a real dust devil is, I know I've wondered. Here's your chance to find out. One of the tornado-like storms, wow, was captured on video in the United Arab Emirates. You can see it towering there over a road where people were traveling. Dust devils are found in temperate and tropical regions around the world, and they're created by strong surface heating and are generally smaller and less intense than a tornado. Wow, that's amazing. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app. And don't forget to watch the National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network and 10 o'clock on the CBC News app. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow.